All right, let's dive into a really fascinating medical mystery. We're talking about the invisible arms race that's happening inside our bodies all the time, between our medicines and the tiny microbes they're designed to fight.
So here's the central puzzle. Have you ever thought about this? Why is it that penicillin, a drug from way back in 1928, can still be a lifesaver, but a cutting-edge antiviral that's maybe only a couple years old can already be losing its effectiveness? It doesn't seem to make sense, does it?
Well, the secret isn't just about how clever our drugs are. To really solve this, we've got to stop looking at our weapons and start looking at the enemies themselves. The real answer is baked into the fundamental nature of what we're actually fighting.
Okay, so let's start by meeting the cast of characters. We've got three main microscopic players in our story: bacteria, viruses, and fungi. And trust me, understanding who they are is the absolute first step to understanding how we fight them.
First up, bacteria. You can think of a bacterium as a tiny, self-sufficient survivalist. It's a complete living cell. It's got its own DNA, its own little factories to build what it needs, and its own power plants for energy. It can live and multiply all on its own, no help needed.
Now, viruses, they are a completely different ballgame. I mean, they aren't even technically alive. A virus is basically a biological hijacker. It's just a little piece of genetic code wrapped up in a protein shell. It can't do anything on its own. Its entire game plan is to break into one of our cells and turn it into a zombie factory that churns out millions of new viruses.
And finally, we have fungi. Now, fungi are complex for sure, but here is the absolute crucial point. They are eukaryotes, just like us. On a cellular level, they are our distant cousins. Their cells have a nucleus and complex parts that are just shockingly similar to our own. And, as you're about to see, that creates a huge, huge problem when we try to fight them. So, now that we know who we're dealing with, let's look at the first major piece of this puzzle, the speed of the game. How quickly can each of these enemies change its defenses and evolve to make our drugs useless?
And, wow, this chart just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, look at that. The mutation rate for viruses is just off the charts high. Bacteria are hanging out there in the middle, changing at a moderate pace. And fungi? They're pretty slow to evolve. This one difference right here explains so much.
So why are viruses so ridiculously fast? Well, especially the RNA viruses, like the flu or coronaviruses. Think of their copying process like a super high-speed photocopier that has no spell check whatsoever. The enzyme that copies their genetic material just makes mistakes all the time. And every single one of those mistakes is a potential mutation, a brand new version of the virus that our drugs might not even recognize. Bacteria, on the other hand, are way more careful. They copy their DNA with some actual proofreading. But, and this is a huge but, they have this wild trick up their sleeve called horizontal gene transfer. This means one resistant bacterium can literally pass a copy of its resistance gene directly to its neighbor, like passing a cheat sheet in class. They don't have to invent a way to resist our drugs, they can just steal the answer. Okay, let's move on to the second big clue in our mystery, finding a target. A good drug needs to be like a guided missile, right? It needs a very specific target on the enemy that, crucially, doesn't exist on our own cells. So, how easy is it to find that Achilles heel on each of these microbes?
For bacteria, it's pretty much a target-rich environment. Because they're so fundamentally different from us, they're just loaded with unique structures we can go after. We can attack their cell wall, something our cells don't have. We can go after their ribosomes, their protein factories, which are a different size than ours. We can even target specific enzymes they have. It's a goldmine for drug designers.
Now, compare that to a virus. Because a virus uses our cells' machinery for almost everything, there are very few unique viral parts to attack. You're usually left with maybe 2 or 3 main targets, like a special enzyme the virus brought with it. That's it. An incredibly small list of weak spots. And this brings us right back to fungi and their biggest challenge, what I like to call the friendly fire problem. Because their cells are so much like ours, many of the things we could target in a fungus, well, we also have in our own cells. A drug that attacks a fungal target could very easily harm us too, which means high toxicity. It's a dangerous game.
This slide shows it perfectly. Just look at the cell membrane. Fungi use a molecule called ergosterol, but we use cholesterol. Great! That slight difference is an amazing target for drugs. It's one of the few. But now look at the ribosomes, the protein factories. In both fungal cells and our cells, they're the same type, ADS.
Attacking them in a fungus would be like attacking them in our own bodies. Not good.
Okay, so we've gathered all the clues. We know who the microbes are, we know how fast they change, and we know how many targets they offer up. Let's put it all together and finally solve the mystery of why some of our medicines win and others lose.
This summary table just lays it all out so clearly. Bacteria are different from us. They offer tons of targets, and they change at a medium pace. The result? High drug durability and low risk to us. Now viruses. They mutate at lightning speed and have almost no unique targets. The result? You guessed it, low drug durability. And finally, fungi. They change slowly, which is good, but their similarity to us means few targets and a high risk of toxicity. So their drug durability lands somewhere in the middle.
So really, the whole thing boils down to this one simple idea. Viruses survive by being fast-changing escape artists. Bacteria survive through slow, steady adaptation and by sharing their secrets. And fungi survive by basically hiding in plain sight, camouflaged by how similar they are to us.
And that brings us to the final thought here. This isn't a static battle. This is a constant, never-ending arms race. Knowing how each enemy plays the game is absolutely key. But as they keep evolving and changing their tactics, the real question becomes, how must we change ours?